duffels are home for last night.
No sleep in at least 2 days.
No, views are good though.
Today, I want to talk about something that can totally ruin your expedition before it even begins. Explosive diarrhea. That would be bad, but honestly, there's something that can end your trip less dramatically and without a good story. And that's if one of your checked bags doesn't show up. It happens more often than people think. And if your duffel doesn't show up to some remote place in India or Pakistan, you're not just inconvenienced, you might be done. We are talking about vital gear that may be impossible to buy or replace with another quality piece. So over time, I've gotten really intentional about what I always keep with me in my carry on bag, and also how I pack to create redundancy in the system. So, when it comes to my main checked bags, I always have two, usually filled to their weight limit or slightly over it. But what I do there is I pick all the items that I have two of in a different bag. So I split my ice tools, I split my double rack into two single racks. I put a pair of steel crampons in one bag and a strap-on pair in the other. One rope into one bag, another into another bag. Main stove in one bag, a backup stove in another bag. A pair of gloves in one, and two other pairs in another bag, and so on. That, as a strategy, may not be obvious to most people, and I discovered most of my partners didn't think of doing that. But this way, you add more redundancy into the system, just like you try to while you are out climbing. If one cam isn't as solid as it looks, you have others below it to protect you from a ground fall. So as a group, we usually bring at least one extra single rack than we will need. Extra pins, extra nuts, cord, one or two extra ropes, depending on the objective and how many routes we plan to attempt during the whole trip. Extra ice picks, extra crampon front points, extra stove, and so on. And we split all of that into different bags for redundancy. Like, if you need to climb with one high-end ice tool and one shitty ice axe that you bought as a spare in India or somewhere, it is still way better. Or having to buy one ice tool instead of having to buy two. Technical climbing expeditions are very different from climbing an 8,000 meter peak with miles of fixed rope. So you will bring a lot more hardware. But if I was going to climb an 8,000er or there was buttress on Denali, I sure as hell would pack my down suit, sleeping bag, and take my boots as a second carry-on item. Next way how I add safety into the system is how I pack my carry-on bag. My carry-on bag itself will be my main high-end bag that I'm climbing the route with. For me, now that's a Blue Ice Alpine Hauler. Second must-have for me are my boots. I bring them as my small carry-on item, and I'll stuff my socks and expensive gloves on the inside. Or I may wear them on the plane, which is not exactly great, but you will stay very warm and your neighbors won't have to find out what trench foot smells like. If your boots don't show up, you're not just replacing gear, you're trying to replace something that's broken in and fitted to your foot. And in my opinion, it's critical for performance. So I make sure I always have them by my side when I travel. Next, the sleeping bag and sleeping pad. Super expensive, super important, and compresses well. I usually pack my comfortable and the route sleeping pad in my carry-on. If you can fit your route tent in the carry-on, that's ideal. especially if you have an expensive high-end tent that you can't afford to lose. I typically wear some of the most important layers I want to have for sure on me when I travel. Everything short of my down jacket, which I typically try to fit in the carry-on. Camera gear, this is a big one for me. Cameras, lenses, batteries, hard drives, all of it stays with me. Same with my drone. Not just because it's expensive, but because if you're documenting your expedition, losing that gear means losing an important piece of creative storytelling. Headlamps and satellite communication, like my Garmin InReach Mini, that always stays with me. Some countries don't allow it, so you may need to keister it, or at least find a way to hide it with rest of your electronics. This one may not be obvious, but a helmet. High-end lightweight helmets are actually pretty fragile. If they get crushed or impacted in a duffel bag, you might not even notice the damage, but it could compromise your safety. In case we have porters on a Himalayan expedition, I take all my fragile gear, including the helmet, and carry it by myself. A few more things I think people should always place in their carry-on include medications and basic medical kit. Anything prescription in your carry-on for sure. Trying to replace meds in a foreign country last minute would be a nightmare. Glasses or contacts, if you rely on them, they stay with you. Documents, including passport, permits, visas, travel insurance. And I personally like to keep digital backups on my phone as well. Charging essentials, cables, power bank, adapters, earphones. Because even if everything else is delayed, you can still run your electronics and stay organized if you bring all that with you. If it's something you can't easily replace, it should probably be in your carry-on. And you just have to triage what is more important to you. I pack my carry-on to the brim. At the end of the day, I think about it like this. If my checked luggage disappears completely, can I still replace the lost gear with something that works and start the expedition? If the answer is no, this item is probably belongs in my carry-on. If I can fit one of my harnesses, it will make me happy. But that's pretty much it. Let me know in the comments if you think I'm missing anything critical and if you think this was useful. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.